You're listening to the Good Question Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Our goal is to make each of our guests exclaim, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. Because when that happens, it means you, the listener, may be inspired to learn more beyond the interview and to ask great questions yourself that lead to new insights. In this podcast, we cover historical and current anthropology, comparative religion, and history. Welcome, and let's get started.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Good Question Podcast. My guest today is Martin Rowinski. He's an author. He's a corporate matchmaker, entrepreneur, referral marketing expert. So we're going to talk about referral marketing and his background and the book he's recently authored. So welcome, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
Yeah, tell me a bit about your background and what attracted you to business and eventually referrals and things like that.
Yeah, so I have quite a bit of consulting background and some pretty good successes when I did that. So what really motivated me to start up Boardsi in this case was the fact that I do find a passion in helping businesses and really taking them to the next level. So I started looking for opportunities that would provide me with some equity. So becoming an advisor or a board member, and there was just lack of resources to connect me. So that's kind of where Boardsi came about, is from the lack of available resources for that service. So we created that middle ground of connecting executives with opportunities so they can step in and help businesses. And now we're able to help many more businesses than I could have ever helped, with way better executives than I even are. So, or am. Yeah, that's kind of where that came about.
So what kind of help do you provide to businesses? To be a little bit more specific.
Absolutely. So we have businesses literally from any industry you can imagine. And this is where my book came in, The Corporate Matchmaker. So what they come to us is different requests. There might be a business that's maybe looking to add new board members, strategically lacking a certain type of a skill that they're looking for in their board to really take their company to the next level, or quite simply an advisor. Basically same type of a skill set, but not come in as an official board member. They're just looking for an advisor. And sometimes we get lucky and we have companies that come to us and want to build out an entire advisory board, which is typically about 5 different advisors. So it can be anything. It can be a financial person. It can be somebody that can help them with funding, who has a deep network of executives and funds that they can connect them with. It can be a marketing person that they're searching for. So yeah, the level of experience in our database of executives that are members and part of Boardsi is deep. So whether, somebody's looking for somebody corporate or somebody that's taking a company public.
What are some ideal compositions of boards? Like if a company is at a certain point, what would be an appropriate board composition?
Yeah, again, boards are different, obviously, and you hear of boards a lot at a publicly traded company level, but they do exist, obviously, at private companies. Most private companies consist of founders and co-founders on the board, but at some point when that company is growing, you got to bring in outside talent or independent board members that are not tied as a founder to that company. Compositions vary. Obviously, you got to have a composition of a financial expert that can do the audits. So you got your typical president, secretary, treasury. And then as the company grows, you also create committees that can be very specific to whatever the company's endeavors are. So it does vary, but we truly believe in diversity and bringing executives at different levels, but also different backgrounds, and not just the typical diversity that most people see, which is race.
What's an important composition? Like, who are the key archetypes you want on the board, even if it's a small one?
You definitely want people that don't only have experience, but expertise in that experience. So in essence, if somebody's never served on a board, even like a nonprofit company, then they're going to be coming with lack of executive board membership experience, which is different. As a board member, you're not coming in and leading the company on a day-to-day decision making. You're coming in to be the strategic, meeting could happen quarterly. I mean, they might reach out and ask some advice. The CEO might reach out and ask for advice in between the quarters, but typically you're going quarter by quarter. So you got goals set, you adjust those goals as a board, and you expect the CEO to achieve those goals.
So in addition to helping people pick board members, how about how meetings are run? where do you get expertise? And I don't know if it's considered corporate governance or if it's just
corporate governance.
how to run a board. Like what are some of the nuances there that need to be known?
So the great thing right now, obviously we're in a tech age and tech world. There's a lot of tools. So in old board meetings, you would get a deck. You usually, typically, if you got lucky, you might get the deck a week before and you got to go through a bunch of papers and sort through them. These days, things become a lot easier. There's companies, and I'll do some name drops, Zeck, Z-E-C-K, being one of them. And they really simplify this. It's a whole digital deck. The whole meeting can be prepared. It can be sent out ahead of time. It's easy to read through. It can be updated. Notes can be made in there by the board members before even the meeting. So by the time you get to the meeting, you're not talking about what's in the deck, but you're actually jumping straight into decision making. And obviously it becomes a tool also not just to drive the meeting, but also as a note-taking, keeping records of what happened at that meeting, possibly taking surveys, decision making. So utilizing tech and tools for board meetings these days is a must.
What about the structure of a proper meeting? Again, what have you found? What if there's conflict? How do you manage it? How do you make sure like meetings are effective and they're not just kind of waste of time where people are sitting there, poking their eyes out with a pencil?
So being board prepared or ready for the board meeting, utilizing the tech and the tools is definitely going to help you not have a time wasted. I truly believe that. And instead of talking about what's in the deck, you're talking about what solutions we can bring to the table. But as far as conflicts, that can go two ways, right? I mean, we're all humans, so there's always going to be a conflict. And if you have a good, diverse board, there's definitely going to be conflicts because every board member will have a different idea or different concept of a best solution. But saying that, I also like to say conflicts are not a bad thing, and conflicts can actually create the best results at the end of the day. And the most important thing when it comes to conflicts is when you are composing, you were asking me earlier about the composition of your board. I think the key component is making sure that every board member, diverse or not, but every board member truly believes in the company's mission, vision, and values. And as long as everybody believes in that, it doesn't matter if there's a conflict. The decision will be made according to what the company stands for and believes in, and it will be the best decision made for that company.
What about your book? Tell me about that. And, what was the motivation behind writing it? What's it about?
So that was a twofold motivation, actually maybe even threefold. One, I've been bugged to write a book for a long time, even before Boardsi, just to kind of tell my story, which chapter 1 covered that. I didn't need to dive into it any deeper than that. I got to tell my story, write my story of where I came from and my beliefs and my appreciation for being here in America. But overall, the reason was we needed executive branding and we needed the companies and the executives to understand why there's a need for a board, why there's a need for advisors. It's become a lot more recently accepted that companies, privately held companies, are actually bringing board advisors. They're seeing the benefits of it. So the book is written two-sided. There's a whole side of it that really focuses on companies, the benefits, talking about the diversity, the different chapter breakdown, how to build your board. And then the other side of it basically is for the executives, what to expect once you join a board, what will you bring to the table, what kind of a contract you're expecting. So it kind of covers both sides. It's it's not difficult read, it's easy read, and we're finding it to be helpful for both our members to understand what they're getting into, and companies really finding it helpful in building their boards.
How do people find board members? Do they need to be paid? And how is, let's say, a business person, how do you know when you're ready for a board, I guess? And then when you go to get board members, do you have to pay them? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's obviously when you're becoming a board member for a publicly traded company, it's a lot different than privately traded company. And a board member versus an advisor is also different. Most cases, publicly traded company, yes, you will have a salary. In a privately traded company, you will possibly have a salary and most likely equity. If you get both, that's great. If it's a company that's maybe in growing stages, they might motivate you with equity to really bring a lot of value to that company. And obviously having equity will motivate anybody to bring value to a company and grow it. So those are the 2 ounces of it as far as on the executive side. Knowing when somebody's ready, I think anybody that has any success, whether it's in the corporate world or an entrepreneur that maybe took a company and took it public, that shows success, that shows resilience, that shows like you can really help out. And now having that success behind you, you can do that for other companies and guide them along the way since you've been there and done that. So that's one aspect of it. If you have never served on a board, there's a lot of great education courses out there. And that is part of the reason we actually put together our own education courses. And as members join, as executives, not the companies, but executives, as they join, and on our platform, they actually have access to board education. We've created 4 courses so far. We're working on a 5th one right now. That gives them a little bit of a dive of what's expected from a board member, how a board works, and what to do when you do become a board member.
Okay. So, like, why would someone want to be a board member? Is it a position that people aspire to, or is it they're already successful and they want to give back, so then they're kind of donating in a way their time? Like who becomes board members and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think easiest answer is everybody will have a different reason. Some people, yes, they simply want to give back. They're maybe retired, but they don't truly want to retire. Entrepreneurs especially are driven people that never see themselves retiring. So they just want to keep going, but maybe they don't want to do it full time. So becoming an advisor might be a perfect situation for them. And some people, when it comes to being a corporate driven person, a lot of times it's a prestige position and it's a great add to their resume for what they have done and accomplished in their career.
So when someone's on a board, do they tend to go from board to board to board and make it a career, or do people usually do it maybe like one part-time appointment and that's it?
Definitely what I like to call career board members, and some of them might be on 4 different boards, 5 different boards, and that keeps them quite busy. And some people just, might still be working full time or have their own business, and maybe they're sitting on one board as an advisor or maybe a board member and just sit there and help out. So it can vary, but yes, you do definitely have specific executives that what I would call are board members for career. Yeah.
Are there people that once they serve on a particular board, it makes them conflicted and they can't serve on other ones?
Yes.
Does that ever come up?
100% it does. Obviously, if you're currently working, so you're a CEO at a specific industry and you're looking at joining a board and that company is in exact same industry as you are, it would be a conflict of interest. They will not be allowed, their company would not allow them to join that board. And we have crossed that path. And that is one of the questions we ask, what type of conflict of interest would you have? So we don't even suggest those opportunities to them. But yes, that has come up.
Okay. Do you serve on any boards, and do you keep like a diary of board member type thing? Do you do any ongoing education based on your personal experiences?
Yes, I do. And yes, I did. I was an advisor for a couple different companies. And about a year ago, I stepped away from that and just became not a conflict of interest, but a conflict of time. And we're pretty focused on growth within Boardsi right now. So it really took away some time. As an advisor, you can spend quite a bit of more time helping the company than a board member. It's not a quarterly thing. And I felt like I wasn't giving 100% to the company as an advisor, and figured they should go and find somebody that can give them more. And so I did step away, but it was a great experience.
Okay. So what does the future of your work look like right now?
Right now, we're still growing Boardsi, and the future's looking like we're most likely going to be doing a little bit more work internationally. So we're going to be growing into Europe a little bit more in the forthcoming, probably 2025, 2026. We're very focused on partnerships right now and a lot of referrals through a partnership, corporate partnerships. So we're talking to quite a few companies, really large companies, publicly traded, in regards to the partnerships and how we can help with their members. So obviously it's all B2B related. What else are we working on? And quite possibly aligning ourselves to take some chips off the table.
It's funny when you say Boardsi, I imagine the bag of frozen vegetables, Bird's-eye. So I guess was that where it was named from?
No, it wanted to find something short and catchy. Obviously we wanted the name Board within there. Just about anything Board was taken. So the S got added as boards, I got added for international.
Okay.
Boards International, Boardsi.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So where can people start engaging and learning? Should they get your book first? Is there a website to go to? Like, how should people engage?
Yeah, I think the best way to engage with us is definitely our website. You can learn quite a lot on there. There's within the menu at boardsi.com, on the main menu, if you click on About, there is a page down the menu called the Board Suite. If you click that, you can really learn a lot about exactly what the Board Suite consists of. On the front page also, it's split into two. There's a side that says executive and side that says company. So if you're a company looking for board members, definitely click the company. And if you're an executive looking for board positions, click executive to learn more. I mean, I can't say do not buy my book. I highly recommend buying the book.
What about internships? What if I wanted to volunteer on a board? I don't need any pay, and I'm not going to vote, and I'm not going to say anything, but I just want to be there and shadow or audit it. And, as an internship, are there opportunities like that for people that want to get started?
100%. And, I always say even better than that, best thing you can do is join a nonprofit board. And even though you think you might not add any value, you never know. You might hear something in a board meeting and you might say something, your opinion, and you might actually bring some value to it. But it's a great experience to sit on a board for a nonprofit, especially if it's a cause that you believe in, and give back that way and at the same time gain some experience. We've recommended that many times to people that are looking to gain that experience.
Okay, great. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Martin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Good Question Podcast. Please email support@thegoodquestionpodcast.com if you have any referrals to great guests for us to interview. Visit thegoodquestionpodcast.com to hear more interviews. And please help us spread the word by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast.
If you're an executive looking for board positions, click executive to learn more. I mean, I can't say do not buy my book. I highly recommend buying the book.
What about internships? What if I wanted to volunteer on a board? I don't need any pay, and I'm not going to vote, and I'm not going to say anything, but I just want to be there and shadow or audit it. And, as an internship, are there opportunities like that for people that want to get started?
100%. And, I always say even better than that, best thing you can do is join a nonprofit board. And even though you think you might not add any value, you never know. You might hear something in a board meeting and you might say something, your opinion, and you might actually bring some value to it. But it's a great experience to sit on a board for a nonprofit, especially if it's a cause that you believe in, and give back that way and at the same time gain some experience. We've recommended that many times to people that are looking to gain that experience.
Okay, great. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Martin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Good Question Podcast. Please email support@thegoodquestionpodcast.com if you have any referrals to great guests for us to interview. Visit thegoodquestionpodcast.com to hear more interviews. And please help us spread the word by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast. Rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast.